All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football podcast. I'll be doing a preview and prediction for Week 7 contest in the SEC between Georgia and Auburn. 4.5-point favorites are the Bulldogs. 47.5 is the total. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC from Jordan-Hare Stadium. Getting things started with that Georgia offense on the Tiger defense. This is a group that's been quite interesting this season for Georgia. You started off very slow against Alabama before finally getting things together, but a series of fourth down stops and a drop touchdown ended up plaguing them as they dropped that game by a couple of points to the tie. They turn around and hung 35 on Kentucky, while a few weeks earlier than that at number 12 Tennessee, they ended up also starting quite slow before they had 500 plus yards of total offense. So it's been an up and down year really for this Bulldog offense, where I think if you want to start with the pass game, it's just been inconsistent production against Tennessee. They're playing from behind and everybody stepped up to make some big plays, including guys like Colby Young, Juan Humphreys, Zachariah Branch had a nice touchdown. Stockton ended up having 300 plus yards and 2 touchdowns in that game against Alabama. They weren't able to hit up many deep throws, and the one they did have again was dropped against Kentucky. There was a bit of a miscommunication leading to his first interception of the season. Had 196 yards in that game, but they struggled to get their top guys involved. Zachariah Branch only a couple of catches against UK. Colby Young, who's the leading receiver, only had 1 grab for 9 yards. They were able to get some production out of Oscar Delp at tight end. He had a big 36-yard reception. Humphreys, of course, is still the third leading receiver. Dylan Bell, a bit of a Swiss Army knife for this team. He ended up having 2 rushing touchdowns on both of his attempts near the goal line. So this is a group that does have weapons. I went and labeled everybody there. You also have some other tight ends in this group, guys like Lawson Lucky, freshman Elias Williams. This is a group that's deep in terms of talent. They just don't seem to have that X factor. As much as people want to rave about Zachariah Branch's speed, that's really all he brings to the table, and he's effective in the quick game. And when it comes to screens, and if they want to use him on special teams as well, but in terms of making plays downfield, he just does not really check that box very often. Colby Young's probably going to be more of your possession pass catcher, 6'4", 215 pounds. This is a Georgia passing attack that they were able to come alive against Tennessee, but it's just not been that great of a group all year long. And even though Stockton has been playing well, he's completing 69% of his passes, not turning over the football, trying to find that balance of effectiveness and efficiency has been a struggle for them. At the same time, a run game that wasn't very good last year. They only had one game of 200 plus yards all year long. Has been a little bit better this year. I think they're starting to really hit their stride as they've went ahead and hit that number already twice this season, including against Alabama, where they're running all over them, especially towards the boundary and downhill, and they're able to get Dylan Bell in a trick play as well. Another 4 yards per carry against Kentucky, and then against Tennessee, the yards per carry wasn't all that great at 3.6, but they really were able to establish their dominance in the trenches when it comes to that physicality. Nate Frazier, he's the running back too. I think Chauncey Bowens is going to go ahead and overtake him as the RB1. He's been getting a bulk of the carries. Dwight Phillips has been getting on the field a little bit. Josh McCray's still going to be that short yardage bruiser with 3 touchdowns on the year. And then Stockton, his legs have been very effective. This is a guy, week 1 against Marshall had 2 touchdowns, and then this past week against Kentucky had another 2 touchdowns early on in that game on just 6 attempts. So this is a guy that's pretty savvy when it comes to making things happen, especially against man coverage. He can certainly burn you. Against the Auburn defense, though, it's going to be a completely different ball game, and you wonder what Georgia is going to be able to possess in terms of their identity against this phenomenal defense. Auburn, of course, has went on the road the last couple games against top 10 opponents, Oklahoma and Texas A&M. OU, they really held them in check. A&M was able to put up 207 yards rushing and passing each, but they only held them to 16 points. They were not able to really score. They struggled on third down. This Auburn defense has really just been a machine this year. And I want to start with the defensive line. This is an elite group. Nobody's ran the ball on them once really all year outside of A&M ripping off a couple of explosives. This is a D-line that is incredibly nasty, one of the best in the country. And it's going to start with that edge duo of Kendrick Falk and then Keyron Crawford. These guys have been highly productive. They generate a lot of physicality when it comes to the pass rush. They do the dirty work in the run game as well. On the interior, young cat Malik Blockton has really been good for them. Bobby Jamison Travis has been splendid against the run. A lot of size that Dallas Walker brings to the table. And, of course, Sycavius Walker as well. It's a very strong group. They've recruited this area very well. Hugh Freeze has done a great job. DJ Durkin has progressed these guys tremendously. It's no joke. This is a lot of size. Auburn has one of the best defensive lines in the country. I think their linebacking core has also progressed quite well. I thought DeMarcus Riddick would be the mainstay there, and it's really been, Robert Woodyard who's been the impressive prospect here. His run defensibility has been tremendous. Xavier Adkins, the LSU transfer, has been getting the most snaps out of all of them. He's been a little bit more inconsistent, but this is still a group that's growing. Elijah Melendez gets on the field. He makes some occasional plays as well. Auburn's defense has just been doing so well at defending the run. They've also been generating such good pass rush. I'm very impressed by this group. So I think for Auburn, you want to look to your secondary to perform big in this game because their safeties, at least early on in the year, really struggled. You look at guys like Caleb Harris, Jacquez Robinson. These guys weren't very good to start the year. Harris is starting to come around a little bit more. He's making his impact felt in the run game. But for your first couple of weeks, it was very disappointing to see how many big plays this secondary was giving up, especially for being a bit of a veteran group at this moment in time. Kalen Lee, Jay Crawford, two really respectable cornerbacks. I think Rayon Strader's also an impressive player. So you have different variations you're going to opt to run with when it comes to utilizing this secondary. I think these corners can hold up. And I think the safeties, though, you have to be stout because they do have guys that can hurt you downfield, that being the Bulldogs. Zachariah Branch, I kind of criticized him for not being his strong suit, but he can certainly hurt you on those screens and miss tackles and being able to fill those gaps quickly. Speed, this is what the secondary is going to have to utilize. I think overall, this is a group that's going to be playing with the home crowd to their back, and I think it's really going to benefit Auburn because this Georgia offense has already had issues when it comes to communication and being in sync already. Now they're going to have to go on the road with an offensive line that on the right side is just not all that polished. The right guard position's been very iffy for them all year long. Dontrell Glover, I think, is going to remain in that spot. You also have Bo Hughley at right tackle. It's been good, but not great. Really, the bread and butter's on the left side. Monroe Freeling and Mekhi Morris at tackle and guard, respectively. But Auburn, I think this is certainly an area for them to really tee off because they've just played two pretty good offenses with significantly better quarterbacks and I think more talent, at least from A&M, compared to Oklahoma, and they were able to hold them in check quite well. So very good matchup for Auburn, I suggest. Looking at the other side of things, you have this Auburn offense that has been abysmal. They've not been able to generate a whole lot. It looked like week one when they ran the ball against Baylor for 300-plus yards, that once this passing attack got in the sync, they'd be a deadly offense, and they've really been struggling to do both against those top 10 opponents. They ran for less than 70 yards in both of them. Of course, they took an abundance of sacks. Jackson Arnold, his biggest problem you saw early on in the season, he was a one-read quarterback. First read's not there, he's going to take off and run, and it worked very well for him. But the takeaway was when they get to SEC play, it's not going to be as effective. And so you've seen him, work out of that habit and develop a worse one, and that's where he's not going to see the first read. He's not going to take off and run. He's just going to sit in the pocket way too long. And he's just been taking so many sacks. So he's been really trying to progress. So he worked out one negative and developed another one at the same time. And that's where this bye week is going to be very critical for Hugh Freeze in this offense to make sure that, Derek Nix is going to be able to get with his quarterback and help, be more on schedule, be more on time. These are very good receivers they have. Cam Coleman, you've seen him over the last couple of weeks. He's been getting free. A lot of throws have not been put on his chest, but he's a heck of a playmaker for this football team when it comes to his athletic ability downfield. Eric Singleton Jr., he's been getting more touches. He leads the team with 27 receptions. This is a guy you want to get involved in the jet sweep game and around screens as well. He's an electrifying playmaker. This is a nice 1-2 punch they have. Horatio Fields, he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. It's not ideal, but Malcolm Simmons is a speed guy they can get involved as well. And I think Brandon Frazier at tight end is going to see an uptick in production. You'd like to see Perry Thompson at some point get on the field more and utilize his skill set. For this run game, though, back to them. Jeremiah Cobb, 403 yards and 4 touchdowns, having a good year. A bulk of that did come over the first couple of weeks against weaker tier opponents, though. Conference play has just been horrible for this rushing attack. Arnold can make you pay with his legs. We've seen it before. He had, 100-plus rushing against Alabama last year when he played at Oklahoma. This is a guy who can, eat a lot of hits, and he's showcased his toughness already this year. 220-pounder, has some nice elusiveness to him. I think this is a run game that they're going to have to use a lot of variations with their receivers, kind of like how Georgia Tech runs their offense. You see motion on every play. You see the ball going to a variety of different spots. It's really tough to contain. I think Hugh Freeze is going to look to implement that, a strong rushing attack built around the quarterback's legs. You're going to look to see Jackson Arnold get out of the pocket. They're going to see a lot of rollouts. moving this pocket to avoid them getting beat up by a very good Georgia defensive line. Because this offensive line, they have not been as bad as the sack numbers would suggest, because, again, the quarterback's really been at fault for a lot of these, but Xavier Chaplin at left tackle has not been as good as he was advertised. Mason Murphy's really been troublesome in pass pro. I think the interiors played well. Connor Liu is a phenomenal center. Dylan Wade at left guard, seemingly doing better at his natural position. And then Jeremiah Wright, a multi-year starter, has been respectable at right guard. For this offense, though, to succeed, you're just going to have to look to dominate the clock. They're going to have to utilize QB's legs, and I think they're going to have to take deep shots against the secondary that has just not been very good. You've seen them against Alabama really struggle in that first half, especially downfield and on third down, where they were awful. And then against Tennessee, these corners are just getting annihilated. Dalen Everett, Ellis Robinson, DeMello Jones, whoever was on field, Daniel Harris even, they were just not very good. I mean, they were getting beat on so many 50-50 balls. Even when they were cover 2 looks, they were still having some issues. They started to come around. Tennessee, they consistently had an attack against Bama. They shut them out in the second half. Great adjustments from Kirby Smart as always. KJ Bolden at free safety. He's your tone setter. He's elite in all regards. Phenomenal against the run as a hard hitter. And then in coverage, it's hard for him to get exploited. The thing for Georgia is they don't have much of pass rushing help. The outside linebacking position is quite weak for them. So their best way of generating pressure typically is, just send these random slot blitzes. And I haven't seen too many of them this year. It's something they're going to have to utilize, especially against an offensive line that's been struggling to communicate. What they've been doing, though, is they've been using Chris Cole and Justin Williams, 2 athletic inside linebackers, former 5-star recruits, elite ball players. And these guys have been getting sent in a variety of different formations to get to the quarterback. And they've been getting some good production this year. And, of course, it allows you to leave C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson truly in the middle to dictate things at their linebacking positions. The linebacking group for Georgia is phenomenal. Insane athletic ability, and it's going to have to be put on display here. A lot of QB spies to try and keep Arnold in the pocket. This will be a tough challenge for this Georgia defense, even though Auburn has been pretty abysmal so far. They're coming back home now, and crazy things happen at home. This offense, I think, with a week off, is definitely going to see a lot of progression, and I think they're going to look to, attack downfield with these pass catchers that can make plays. Leads to the final analysis and the prediction. I'm going to take Auburn. I'm going to take a shot at them here. I think in a lower scoring contest, that's what you're looking at. That's definitely going to favor the Tigers, I would say, being at home. Crazy things happen to Jordan here. I mean, this is a night game. We're getting about 4.5 points from the books. Georgia, I mean, they're good, right? But what's the real ceiling on this offense? I'm really not sure, but I highly doubt they're going to showcase their best efforts here on the road in this environment, where the run game's not going to be really there for them, and this downfield passing attack is just not really been able to provide much of a spark. And I don't anticipate it can against an improved Auburn secondary. I said it for Florida when I picked them to beat Texas this past Saturday, which they were able to do, is that bye week was crucial. Their offense has been struggling badly against some really good defenses, but they were still leaving a lot on the table. And the bye week was a chance for them to reset and get on track with a good offensive coach, go back to the drawing board, establish what we like. And they've had a week to prepare for this game. I think you're going to see kind of like what Georgia Tech operates with in their offense. A lot of misdirection, a lot of downhill running, trying to get the receivers to the boundary, and then we're going to take shots downfield as well. And I think they're going to be able to hit on some of those shots that Cam Coleman. Crazy things happen at Jordan here. I'm going to take a shot at Auburn in this one. It's just hard to imagine with this defense, them losing against a bit of a sputtering Georgia team at this moment in time. That's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.